You're on.
Okay. Hey, thank you so much, everyone who's come here to listen to our 7 amazing storytellers. You are with the Storytelling Association of California with our monthly event, the Genre Storytelling Series. And this month, as you probably already know, is our stories about folktales. And on the 3rd Wednesday of next month in October, we will go into spooky, scary stories. So get ready to sit back and listen to some outstanding stories. Our first storyteller is Andre Wilson, and he is a storyteller that I've heard many times, and I enjoy listening to his unique stories. He has had his experience telling stories in lots of different story swap groups, lots of different venues. He is a poet, a writer, and a storyteller, and he tells stories with storytelling classes with nonprofit organizations with people that have disabilities, children that have disabilities. So an interesting fact about Andre that I just found out is that he has this collection of stories called Haunting that he has produced and written and got a $500 award for doing that. So sit back and get ready to listen to a fantastic story by Andre Wilson.
Thank you, Ed, for that gracious introduction. Long ago in West Africa, the winter harmattan season lingered into spring. Cold, dry, and dusty trade winds swept down from the Sahara Desert through West Africa and into the Gulf of Guinea. Wherever people met, they talked about the cold and the deaths. One farmer said, "I do not recall a season that has been as cold as this one. There is so much dust in the air. I have not seen the sun in days. All of my crops are failing." A market woman replied, "Yes, there is so much dust in the air, I can hardly breathe, and I shiver. Both the young and the old die in large numbers." And the farmer replied, "Yes, but the best thing about attending all of these funerals is I try to keep warm by doing the dance for the dead." All the village elders gathered to discuss how to handle the situation of this perpetual cold weather. The eldest among them stood and addressed the assembly. "My people, I salute you. For many months, we have endured this cold weather. Only our God Chukwu knows why we have to deal with all this. Sometimes I wonder if Chukwu has forsaken us. We must send a messenger to Chukwu to tell him of our plight." The entire assembly accepted the elders' recommendation, but they could not agree upon who to send as a messenger to the god. While they debated, the trickster tortoise Mbe volunteered. Ooh, ooh, I can do it. I can do it. Now, Imbe was the tortoise that had won the race between the tortoise and the hare. Yes, that tortoise there. And as such, the people accepted his self-appointment as the messenger to the god Chakwu. However, as a tortoise, Imbe was rather slow on his own, and because he lacked feathers. And so all the birds of the land, the black-crowned crane, the peacocks, the flamingos, the doves, all the birds donated feathers, and they stuck them into Imbe's shell. And he began to move those feathers, and he began to fly and fly and fly and fly, and Imbe flew far and wide until he arrived at the land of the god Chakwu. And he arrived at the front gate, and he knocked, bump, 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 and waited. No answer. He knocked again, bump, 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 and waited. No answer. Finally, Imbe, the trickster tortoise, began to drum on the door. Bump, ba bump, bump, ba bump, bump, ba bump, bump, ba bump, 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 bump. From inside the gate came this curse. May those hands that knock on my door stick to it. And Imbe stopped drumming on the door lest his hands stick to it. And he got so mad and so incensed, he said, may those words stick to your mouth. And Imbe waited and waited and waited. But the gate never opened. So Imbe said, oh well, at least I tried. And Imbe flew back home without ever seeing the god Chakwu. By and by, the dog Inkita volunteered. And that dog traveled far and wide until it arrived at the land of the god Chakwu. And it arrived at the great gate. And Inkita sat there and waited. And waited. And waited. Finally, the great gate opened. And Chakwu said, Inkita, what has happened to you? Dust covers your coat. I can see your ribs, and you shiver. If this is how you appear, my people must be cold and suffering. Take this here torch from my fire. Hold it in your mouth by the handle like this and carry it back to my suffering people. Inkita did as he was told. He held the torch in his mouth by the handle and carried it. But before he arrived back to the people, his long, wet nose extinguished the fire. So Inkita returned back to Chakwu's gate, holding the burnt out torch in his mouth. Chakwu gave him another torch from the fire, and Inkita carried it far away. But before he arrived back to the people, his long wet nose put out the fire again. So Inkita returned back to the god Chakwu, holding the burnt out torch in his mouth. Now, Inkita did this 7 times. And each time his wet nose extinguished the fire. Finally, on the 8th attempt, the god Chakwu directed him, Inkita, when you carry the torch in your mouth, blow real gently so that it does not put out the fire. Okay? And Inkita did as he was told. He put that torch in his mouth, held it by the handle there, and he carried the gift of fire back to mankind, spreading warmth and happiness all around. But as for Inkita, his breath never recovered from carrying all of those torches. That is why, to this day, dogs pant. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Well, I always wondered why dogs pant.
That's the reason why.
Thanks for letting me know that.
Well, thank you, everybody. Great
Yes.
honor. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, we're honored to have you here. And I forgot to mention that Andre is representing Contra Costa tail spinners, and he's told there quite a few times. And that's one of our amazing California story swap groups. And I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Ed Lewis, and I'm your MC for tonight and a board member of the Storytelling Association of California and the producer of this particular event. And we encourage all of you, if you are not members of our organization, to go online to our website and think about joining. We have many amazing workshops. We've got one coming up on doing a hybrid event for those groups that are coming back to in person, but we still want to keep that Zoom aspect going. We've had workshops on telling stories and being aware of copyright issues. We've had workshops on being an MC, workshops on everything you can imagine with storytelling. So it's a great organization, and we hope you participate in that and look for your local story swap groups. And if you don't have one, form one. All right. And Andre, I always enjoy a trickster's tale, and I like hearing new tricksters that I've never heard before. Okay, our next storyteller is going to be one of the representatives from the local group that I belong to, the Sacramento Storytellers Guild. I met her at the Chennai Storytelling Festival in India. That's an annual festival that's been put on for quite a few years now. And after hearing her story, I wanted to involve her in our world here of storytelling. And you'll find out here, she's an amazing storyteller. She's brought a new kind of storytelling for me and many people into our storytelling world called Kamishibai. I think I'm saying it right. If not, she'll correct me. That's an interesting, very interesting Japanese art form for storytelling. And one of interesting fact about Ramya is that she does have a program for young children. It's called Katha Corner. And she also is really enthralled with the idea of this Zoom, because she's in India right now, 13 and a half hours later, than us here out on the West Coast. And she is able to join us on Zoom, and then all kinds of other people. And I've enjoyed that also. So please welcome Ramya Srinidhi.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you so much for that introduction, and good evening to all of you. Thank you. And I'm very excited to be here, and I'm going to tell a story, a folk tale from India. Well, I had heard this story long ago, but I had never found an opportunity to tell this story. So this will be the first time I'll be telling this story to you. Once upon a time, somewhere in southern India, there was a beautiful village. In that village lived a young girl called Tara. She used to live with her parents and her grandmother. Oh, her grandmother, let me tell you, was this beautiful woman. She used to have a 9-yard sari draped to perfection at all times. A red bindi on her forehead, well-oiled hair with jasmine flowers in them. Tara loved her grandmother. Every morning, when grandmother used to comb Tara's hair, she would tell her a song. Kokko koli, belagaitu yeli, amba amba karuve, halu kudiyalu baruve, meow meow bekke, kaddu halu nekke, chew chew iliye, mahadi inda iliye, bow bow nai, saku muchu bai. This was a song about all the animals that lived in the farm. Kokko Koli was the rooster which would sit on the fence and every morning would go Kokko. And the meow meow Beku was the cat which would quietly come and lick milk. Tara loved this song. She would sing this song all through the day. And in the night, when all the work was done, Tara would come running and sleep on grandmother's lap. Grandmother used to pat Tara's head gently and tell her a story. Ondanond kaladalli, once upon a time, there was this great king. While grandmother used to tell the story, Tara would close her eyes and escape into the world of imagination about the kings, the queens, and all that the grandmother used to tell her. Well, Tara grew up and her grandmother passed away, leaving behind the song and the story for Tara. She would sing the song all the time when she was happy, when she was sad, when she was eating, drinking. And in the night, she would go to her bed, look out of the window at those stars and maybe wonder if her grandmother was still there. And she would loudly tell that story and put herself to sleep. Now, Tara was all grown up and her parents wanted to get her married. They found a good-looking, wealthy young boy from the next village and got him married to Tara. It was the day when Tara was now heading to her husband's house. Shh, Tara, come here. Listen, my child, none of these singing and dancing will do in your husband's house. You can't do any of this. You have to be well-mannered, well-groomed, and good behaved child. Do you understand? Said her mother. No singing, no dancing, no none of this will do. No fun and frolic. You need to bring respect to us as well, Tara, said her father. Okay, she said, as she sat on that bullock-driven cart, heading towards her husband's house. Tara looked back, leaving behind all her childhood memories, heading towards her husband's house. Well, the next morning, Tara got up, went into her kitchen in her husband's house, and she was about to start the cooking, and "Ko," said the rooster, just outside her window. Koli. Remember what mother had told? No singing and dancing. I have to be a well-mannered, well-groomed, well-behaved. So saying, she swallowed this song right inside. Every time the song was trying to come outside, she only said no and pushed it right inside into her stomach. That night when Tara went to bed, she looked out of the window and she was about to start her story. Her husband was lying next to her in the bed, snoring. Oh, maybe my story will wake him up. So, no story. She swallowed the story inside as well. Well, many days and months passed, and Tara never sang the song or told the story ever again. Well, the story and the song, which was inside her stomach, was getting a little agitated. They wanted to come out, and Tara would never let them. They wanted to take revenge on Tara. And one day, when she was sleeping in the afternoon with her mouth wide open, the song quietly crept outside, took the shape of a man's shoes, and quietly went and stood outside in the veranda. And the story too crept right behind, took the shape of a man's coat, and somehow went and hung itself on the peg. Well, that evening, when the husband came back home, he saw a man's shoes, a man's coat. He came and said and blasted Tara. Tara was innocent. She had no clue what it was. And what are you talking, my husband? What shoes? What coat? I don't know. Ah, come on, he said. He started arguing and he picked up his pillow and his blanket and he said, I am not sleeping here. I am going to the monkey god temple and spending the night there. And he rushed out of the house. Poor Tara, not knowing what to do, she wept and her eyes were now swollen. Well, finally, she blew out the lamp and she went to bed. Well, all the lamps, the flames of the lamps in the town used to assemble at the monkey god temple once they were put out. They would spend the entire night there gossiping. Well, all the lamps of all the houses were represented, except for one flame, which was a little late. All the flames looked at the latecomer and said, why are you late? Oh, I'm so sorry. You see, this woman in my house put me off very late. The husband and the wife had some quarrel. It was something about the shoes and a coat. Now the man who was sleeping in the temple, listening to the conversation of the flames, was now a quarrel, a shoe and a coat, man and husband. Now he was listening a little more intent. Oh, we love gossip, a fight, an argument. Tell us more, said the flames. Oh, well, you know, this woman in the house, she knows a song and a story, but she never tells them. So the song and the story wanted to take revenge. So they came outside and they took the form of a coat and the shoes. And the husband saw this, she doubted the wife, and then there was a big argument. The wife put me off so late. That's why I came late here, said the flame. Well, listening to this conversation, the man quickly picked his pillow and his blanket and rushed back home and went straight to his wife, who was now sleeping in a pool of tears. He looked at her and said, my wife, tell me, do you know a song? Do you know a story? Well, Tara was surprised to see her husband come back and asking her this question, but she had to tell the truth. So she said, yes, I do know a song and a story. Well then, my dear, tell me the story. Sing me the song. I want to listen, he said. That entire night, the husband was awake, listening to the story and the song. Since that day onwards, until today, Tara has been telling the story and the song and many stories and many songs. So let me tell you, if you know a song or a story, don't keep them inside. You never know how they can take revenge. So keep singing songs and telling stories and be happy. Thank you so much for listening to me.
As usual, fantastic storytelling. I just love how expressive you are. And what a good message. Singing, telling stories. We all need to keep on doing that. We all have stories. And I don't think I've heard you sing before, and you have a very beautiful voice. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Ed.
Okay, well, our next story is teller is someone that probably all of you listening, or most of you, know and have heard. She's been telling stories for quite a while. Organized events. Her name is Marilyn McPhee. She's representing the Storytellers of San Diego. She is also on our was on the board of the National Storytelling Network, and I did some reporting to her on the as a Pacific Coast liaison to the National Storytelling Network, and she is just so precise and so organized, and just an amazing storyteller, workshop presenter. She comes to all our board meetings and is not a board member. Contributes a lot to the storytelling community. And an interesting fact she told me, I would love to hear more about this, is Marilyn has an eyeball collection. And she described the eyeballs as inflatable, squishy, bouncing, erasing, hopping. So I'm sure there's an interesting story around that. But right now, let's welcome Marilyn McPhee to tell us a folktale.
Thanks, Ed, and thanks for the invitation to tell a story. The story I'd like to share with you tonight is one from the Brothers Grimm, and I hope you enjoy it. Once, long ago, there was a young woman who was as good as she was beautiful, as often happens in stories like this. She was an orphan, as often happens in stories like this, because of course, if her parents were alive, then she would probably have chores and homework and a curfew. And what kind of a basis is that for an interesting story? Well, she lived with her godmother at the edge of the village in a, well, you probably know this, right? Do you think it was a split level ranch house? No. A timeshare condominium? No. An apartment? No. Of course, she lived at the edge of the village with her godmother in a small cottage. Now, her godmother made her living with the fiber arts. She worked with needles and looms and spindles. So yes, she sewed and she wove and she, do you know the past participle of the verb to spin? Yes, she span. She span and she sewed and she wove. And so after the span of many years, she taught these skills to her goddaughter. And then one day, the godmother said that she felt most unwell. And in fact, she felt like that her life was just hanging by a thread. Her goddaughter, oh, wait, you can't have her star of a story without a name. So let's give her a name that kind of works with the fabric arts theme we've got here. How about Pearl? So the godmother spoke to Pearl and said that she felt like her life was just hanging by a thread. And Pearl said, oh, please don't leave me. But the godmother said, alas, I must. And so she cast off. Yes, she died. And I know what you're thinking now. You're thinking, oh, darn, that's too bad. And that's probably what Pearl was thinking too, although she was much too refined to use a vulgar word like darn. But she decided to go into the fabric arts business that her godmother had taught her about. And so she began to work with spinning and weaving and needlework and, yes, darn it, darning. She was a very industrious girl because her godmother had always said, be kind and work hard and all things will come together for your good. Now, we must leave this part of the story and take a kind of a spin-off of the story, follow the narrative thread, and I hope we can just seamlessly transition to another part of the story, because in the very same kingdom, there was a prince who was looking for a woman to marry. Now, the truth was he wasn't an only child. He was one of three, and as I imagine you've guessed, he was the youngest. The other two princes, the older princes, they'd already married, but it hadn't really worked out very, very well. So one of the princes, he'd married a woman who was very selfish. She had such warped ideas, and she totally fleeced the prince and the entire kingdom. Now, as for the second prince, I'm sure you're hoping that things would work out better, but in fact, they were worsted. Yes, they were much worse. And I'm afraid not that things worked out better. In fact, it seemed for a while like the entire kingdom was coming apart at the seams. Disaster loomed. And now the fate of the kingdom was in the hands of the youngest prince. He went to his chief advisor to get some advice. And the advisor said, do you have any notion of what you're planning to do? And he said, well, I've been batting around a few ideas, but I think I've come up with a pretty good pattern. I'm going to start with a riddle. And the advisor said, oh, a riddle is good. The more ambiguous, the better. And so the young prince, he was very handsome, I should tell you that. He had blue eyes and he was tow-headed, which means that his hair was the color of flax. Well, he said, I've got a pattern and I've got a riddle. And the riddle is this: I will marry the one who is the richest and the poorest. Very ambiguous, said the advisor. But privately, he thought it was maybe just a little too ambiguous. And so he put together an Excel spreadsheet where he listed all of the eligible young women in the kingdom, and then he just sorted by net worth. And so the day came when the prince was, oh, we should probably give him a name too, something that fits with our theme. How about Hank? So Hank was going to go out and look for a wife. And he started with the richest eligible girl in the kingdom. She was sitting in front of her house. It was a mansion, really. And she was dressed beautifully in a gown of Dupioni silk, lots of embroidery, although she had not done the embroidery. When the prince rode by, she gave a big smile, really very big smile, a very white smile, as though she'd been using a lot of those teeth whitening strips. Well, the prince was not enchanted, and he rode on by. And for the rest of the day, he rode on by house after house, woman after woman, until at last he came to the very edge of the village and the cottage of Pearl. Now, Pearl was not sitting outside the cottage, humming a tune of "Someday my prince will come." No, indeed, she was following what her godmother had always told her to do. She was inside industriously spinning. But there was something that, well, perhaps it was because she was the last one on the list, that Hank dismounted and he looked through the window, and maybe it was her fine skills, or maybe it was her beauty. Well, it was je ne sais quoi, something. Anyway, he was enchanted, and he decided to return to the palace and finalize his decision. Now, he had cast a bit of a shadow in Pearl's cottage when he came to the window, and suddenly, inexplicably, she felt the need for a breath of fresh air. So she ran to the window, but she was only in time to see the prince disappearing into the trees and to see the tips of the white feathers on his hat just bobbing through the trees. Yeah, just bobbing through the trees. Well, she sat back down and she returned to her spinning. She picked up her spindle, and when she did, she remembered something that her godmother had said, a little rhyme. Spindle, spindle, go and see, and bring my true love back to me. And suddenly the spindle leapt out of her hand and out the door, trailing a golden thread behind it. Well, she could no longer spin, but do you think that this was a message to her that she needed to take a break, take a little nap, get some chocolate, something to drink, watch some Netflix? No, indeed, she was a very industrious worker, and so she simply turned to weaving. She went to the loom and she began to weave back and forth with the shuttle. And it was at this point that she remembered the second part of the little verse that her godmother used to say, which was, "Shuttle, shuttle, weave so fine, a welcome for the love of mine." Well, the shuttle leapt out of her hands and out the door and began to weave a really nice welcome mat, a really exceptionally nice welcome mat. You've seen those red carpets that they roll out for special people, but you've never seen anything like this. It was a golden ground, and it was embroidered on the sides. There were woven leaves and fruits and flowers. And there were some little bunny rabbits hopping around in the foreground, and little deer, think Bambi, peering out from between the branches of the trees and some bluebirds twittering away in the trees. And then in an old German script, it said, "Welcome, Hank, AKA Prince." Nice. Well, meanwhile, Pearl had returned to her fabric art. She picked up a needle and began to sew. But as she did, she remembered the third and last part of the little verse that her godmother used to say, which was, "Needle, needle, sew, sew fine, ready the house for the love of mine." Now, if a needle were going to ready my house, it would have to do some serious scrubbing and vacuuming and window washing. But of course, all of that was already done in Pearl's little cottage. So the needle was embellishing mostly. It sewed some curtains for the windows and some cushions and some throw pillows for the sofa for a little pop of color. And by the time the needle finished, the whole place was Pinterestized, I guess you could say. Well, at this point, the the spindle returned with the prince in tow. And he approached the cottage. He knocked on the door. Pearl answered the door, and Hank said, "Hello." And Pearl said, "Hello yourself." Well, Hank told her that he had fallen in love with her and determined that they should be married. And because he didn't want to just spend the next several months shuttling back and forth between the cottage and the castle, he said, maybe we should get married immediately. Well, as for Pearl, she didn't know what to think. Her head was spinning. Her brow was knitted. Well, as she thought about it, though, she didn't want to keep the prince on pins and needles. She didn't think it would be nice to be stringing him along. That totally went against her grain. And so she gave him her answer right then. And the answer was yes. And so Pearl and Hank were married. They returned to the castle and they lived long and happily. It was a very happy marriage, everyone said. It was though their hearts were knit together in love. They were well matched. They were perfectly suited to each other. He always seemed to know just how she felt. Sometimes she would kind of needle him, but he usually kept her in stitches. And when they had an occasional argument, they were always able to patch things up. Now, I might be a little bit biased in my assessment, but I feel like that the binding that bound them together was just perfect. So they were married for better or worse. Their lives were intertwined for as long as they lived, the span of their mortal lives, and perhaps even longer. And so we have our happily ever after, or so it seems. Thank you.
So it seems, happily ever after. I'm always captivated by your stories, Marilyn. The flow is just so precise, and I learned new words. Now I know that span is the plural of spin. I'm so excited. And Pinterize. That's a great word. Thank you so much, Marilyn. I appreciate you as a storyteller. Thank you. Okay, so now we're moving to our next storyteller, Angela Lloyd, who represents the Inland Valley Storytellers. And probably many of you also know Angela. She has been on the storytelling scene for quite a few years. She has won the Oracle Award with the National Storytelling Network. I've seen her many times at every festival I can think of, the Bay Area Festival, the Sierra Storytelling Festival, the National Storytelling Festival. I mean, and she is just a real breath of fresh air. And she works with, let me check that out. She's a musician and storyteller, teaching artist. And she works with children. I can just imagine how enthralled children are with her. And if you've ever seen her on stage, you might have seen her with her washboard or other kinds of unique, interesting instruments.
Yeah.
So please welcome. Oh, wait, there was a fact about Angela here that I wanted to share. She lost her wedding ring in some pine needles. and couldn't find it. And then 7 years later, she found the wedding ring in pine needles. That's a very interesting story. Okay, thank you, Angela. Welcome.
You are very welcome. It's lovely to be here with you all tonight. I love this series, so it's great to highlight folk tales. I was thinking about all of us today getting ready and how some of us probably spent at least part of the day with the story we were going to tell tonight. And I've always loved that about stories. They are trustworthy companions. So the one that I brought for you to tell tonight comes out of a collection of stories from Tibet and China. And it happens this year in the Chinese lunar calendar, was the year of the tiger. And this story is called The Tiger in Court. There was once, long ago, a woman who was in her later years. She was over 70, the story tells us. And she lived with her only son. And they were getting along just fine until one afternoon her son left the house and went up into the hills, and he was eaten by a tiger. And when the old woman learned of this fate of her beautiful baby boy, now grown, she was beside herself. And so she made her way to the magistrate's home. And she knelt in front of his desk and just cried and cried and cried and asked the magistrate to please bring the tiger to court. At first, the magistrate laughed, but she didn't hear him. His attendants, who were behind her, sitting on benches, they noticed. And they thought it was as absurd a request as he had. But there was nothing to console her. And finally, the magistrate said to her, How do you think we could bring a tiger here to court? And she said, You must. A murderer must give his life. You must. And she would not leave his home. So finally, the magistrate looked out among his attendants and he said, All right, one of my attendants will make his way out and he will go looking for the tiger. That was not enough for this mother. She insisted he issue a warrant and then think about who was going to bring that warrant true. Well, the magistrate, really understanding there was no way this woman would leave his home or his office, he issued a warrant. He issued the warrant. And then he held it up and asked for which of his attendants would carry it out. And the old woman wasn't leaving until she saw who that was. And finally, one of the attendants, who'd been resting with his back against the wall in the back of the room, he was drunk. And he had been so irritated by the sound of this woman's weeping that he raised his hand and he offered to bring the tiger to court. And with that, the magistrate stamped the paper, showed it to the woman, and she picked herself up off her knees and made her way home. Well, the next day, the attendant who had offered to go and get the tiger, he didn't think anything of it. He just thought the magistrate just wanted to get the woman out of his home. But when he showed up for work, the magistrate said, well, he showed him the warrant, and Li Neng, the attendant, said, oh, you just keep that. I'm not going to be going to get the tiger. And the magistrate said, oh, yes, you are. You raised your hand. That old woman is expecting to see the tiger in court. And Li Neng said, how am I to do that? The magistrate said, I don't know. I was thrilled when you raised your hand. I thought you had a way. So Li Neng said, well, perhaps you would loan me some of the hunters that are here and live in this district. Could they come with me? And the magistrate said, absolutely. So one day after another, Li Neng went out into the hills with the hunters looking for the tiger. And they could not find him anywhere. And finally the hunters said, we're not going with you. You're on your own in this. And so it was that one afternoon, Li Neng was up in the hills and he just began to despair. Really, just imagining this woman, imagining losing one of his own children to a tiger. And he made his way to a small outdoor temple there in amongst the trees. And he stepped in and he sat down and he just held his head in his hands. And after a while, a tiger came walking in to this temple. And Li Neng looked at him and he thought, this can't be true. But he took a deep breath and he said, are you the tiger that took the life of that old woman's son? And the tiger stretched back on his haunches and lowered his head. And Li Neng took a rope from his pocket and he said, I need to take you to the magistrate's house. Will you come with me? And the tiger just extended his head, this soft little face, soft, big face, across that cement. And Li Neng took the rope and put it around his neck, and he stood up, and the tiger stood up and followed him all the way back to the magistrate's home. Well, the magistrate was very surprised to see the tiger. He noticed how docile he was, and he sent word for someone to go and bring the old woman. And when she arrived, she was very nervous around him, and they gave her a chair across the room, and she looked at the magistrate. And the magistrate looked at her, looked at the tiger, and then he said, it is normal that one who murders would give their life as punishment for this crime. And he looked at the tiger and he said, do you realize, do you understand that you took the life of the only one who would have taken care of this woman in her declining years? You took the life of that person. And the magistrate said, I'm inclined to ask if you, from this moment on, would behave as though you were her son. And if you will take care of her and bring her meat and give her kindness. And the old woman stood up and was crying and saying, no, 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 he has to give his life. And the magistrate said, And what good will that bring? And he looked at the tiger and he said, will you do that? Will you now take the place of the duties of her son? And again, the tiger bowed his head. The old woman needed help to stand up and leave, but she did. And the next day, when she woke, she found on her veranda, outside her home, a slain deer. And with the help of neighbors, she took that meat to the market and she sold some of it and traded some of it. And from that, and for several years, the tiger was like her son. He brought her food. He sometimes slept on her veranda. He never growled. He never showed his teeth. He was as kind and as quiet and peaceful as he could be. When the old woman died, the neighbors came and prepared her body. And just as they were getting ready to take her out to bury her at the gravesite, the tiger came walking out of those hills, and he put his front paws on the stairs to the veranda, and he threw back his head, and he let go this old, ancient cry. And then he bowed his head, and then he moved back away so as let the people know he was not of any threat. And he watched with those soft eyes as they carried her body out of her home and into the trees to the grave. The story ends saying that in southwest China, there is a statue. It's called the Faithful Tiger, and it is in a public place. I haven't seen it, but I know it's there. Thank you.
Wow. Oh, boy. Definitely living up to your reputation as a teaching artist. Thank you for the important message, and just the way you tell stories is so captivating. Thank you so much.
Ed. Thank you, everybody.
All right. It's an emotional story for me. Okay, well, our next storyteller represents the Do Tell Story Swap up in the Santa Rosa area. And she says she's a newbie at this. She's been telling stories for 5 or 6 years, and I've heard her tell other stories, and you wouldn't know that she's a newbie. I can guarantee that. An interesting fact about Sharon Elwell is her name. She has worked with preschool age children as a teacher all the way up through community college. So we know she's got a rich store of stories that I'm sure she'll be developing as she continues on her storytelling journey with us. So please welcome Sharon Elwell.
Thank you, Ed. This is the story that I'd like to share tonight is a modern take on a very old folk tale. John Hammond was an extremely successful investment broker. He made a large fortune, and he did it with his three-pronged method of meticulous research, painstaking analysis, and cautious investing. And like all fathers in folk tales, or many fathers in folk tales, he had 3 sons. The oldest son was handsome and friendly and very intelligent. And John knew that in order to further this boy, a good education for him would be money well spent. And so he sent him off to Princeton. And the boy came back with a degree and a fistful of job offers that had numbers with lots of zeros in them. And he eventually settled on an outfit to work for that was just getting started in Seattle, building computers. And away he went. The second boy was equally well favored. And when he told his father that he was thinking about Wharton, his father got out the checkbook again and sent him away. And that son came back with an MBA, and he had to spend the whole summer after graduation up at the lake house sifting through the different opportunities that were available to him. He finally settled on a company in Palo Alto that offered him an upscale apartment, a personal assistant, and the very latest in tech. But like so often happens in folktales, the third son was named Jack. And as also often happens in folktales, the third son was nothing like his brothers. He didn't do well in school. He had not the faintest glimmer of ambition, and he had no interest whatsoever in the family business of acquiring and managing wealth. So when John Hammond looked at that son, he thought an expensive education for this boy would be a serious waste of his time and my money. And he determined instead that he would try an investment broker's version of homeschool. And so he spent a great deal of time putting together spreadsheets on all of the stocks on offer with his annotations for each one. And when he finished that monumental task, he approached his son and said, Jack, I want you to learn the basics of investing. So I want you to study these materials I have prepared for you. And when you determine a stock that is going to be increasing in value and make money for us, I will buy you 100 shares and get you started. Well, Jack was terrified, to say the least. He looked at those words, amortized, PE ratios, dividends. It might as well have been Lithuanian. There was nothing on that page that had any meaning to him. And he didn't want to displease his father because he loved him. And his father eventually lost patience and said, Jack, just look at it and tell me, what do you like? That was a much easier question. Jack didn't know what those words meant, but he knew what he liked. So he said, I like coffee. And the father thought for a moment. He'd worked in commodities for many years, and he knew that coffee was chiefly sourced. Some man named Juan Valdez brings it down from the mountains, and it's cheaply sold. It's usually a loss leader in restaurants, 25 cents a cup and free refills. There's just no money to be made in coffee. But maybe that's the very lesson that Jack needs. Now, this took place in 1987. So he determined, looking at the stock materials that he had acquired, that a company in Seattle had recently gone public, and they were selling only coffee, and they intended to sell it for 10 times what anyone had ever paid for it. An obvious disaster. And so he thought, this is still cheaper than sending him to college, and he bought the 100 shares. Well, the stock skyrocketed. It took off. It doubled and split and doubled and split again. And that was not the lesson about care and moderation that John intended to teach his son. So he decided to try once more, and he went back. Jack, what do you like? Now, Jack had just been running, and he came in, and he was hot and sweaty and tired. And he said, I like water. I really like water. And John thought about that, he said. And he knew that French people might bottle small amounts of water and sell it for exorbitant prices, but no practical red-blooded American is going to pay good money for something that comes free out of every tap. This would be the surefire disaster he was hoping for. And so he bought 100 shares of a company called Evian. And then, just to be positive, another 100 shares of one called Arrowhead. Well, fortunately or unfortunately, it had the same result. Those stocks took off, and John was making money for his son hand over fist. He was not learning the lesson that he hoped he would learn, but he was beginning to think that maybe his slacker son had some sort of savant ability that the rest of the world just did not comprehend. And so he said to him, Jack, what do you like? And Jack said, oh, I like video games. I especially like the one where you can pretend to be a car thief and go through all the excitement of stealing things and not get in trouble with the police. Unimaginable, said his father. But he invested. And then he went back. Jack, what do you like today? Oh, I like fantasy football, where they take real players and put them into imaginary teams, and they play imaginary games, and real people bet real money. Inconceivable, said his father. But he invested. And once more, that conversation went on. Jack, what do you like today? I like cryptocurrency. It's like play money, and you can buy imaginary things in a metaverse, which is sort of like a real universe, only you can't see it unless you have a computer. By this time, the father did not need convincing, and he invested once again. So these days, after that, when a client came to him and said, John, I'm considering investing in a company that wants to bring Korean pop music called K-pop into a large market where people sing things like Baby Shark, do-do-do-do-do-do. And John said, that's an impossible investment. Let me check with Jack. And so Jack made his mark on the world, because today when somebody misses a bet on an unlikely investment, someone else is sure to say, oh, you don't know Jack. And that's the end of that one.
Yeah, that's modern folktale. Fantastic. Boy, I really enjoyed that. Thank you so much. And no one would know that you're a newbie storyteller. Very well told. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Enjoyed it thoroughly. Okay, well, our next storyteller is Angela James. She's also representing the Sacramento Storytellers Guild. She's been with this organization forever. I've heard her tell many stories. They're all just captivating and entertaining. She has a dance group called the Dance and Drum Circle group called the Phoenix Drum and Dance. And she's done a lot of work with youth, the storytelling and music throughout the Sacramento region. Everyone around this area knows her very well, and we always enjoy hearing stories from Angela James. She's also on the board of the Storytelling Associate, the Sacramento Storytellers Guild. So please welcome Angela James.
Hi, thank you.
Oh, wait,
And
Angela, I forgot your unique fact. Her
Oh.
unique fact is that
Right.
Angela is Irish. There you go. All right, thank you.
okay, and I hear the silence. Well, actually, I used to think I was Irish until my grandmother put me straight. She says, "Oh no, you're not Irish, you're Scottish." And I'm like, well, it ends in ish. What's the difference? So, could be British, Scottish. So now I just say I'm Americanish. So anything that ends with an ish, I'm willing to take it. But that's the fact that very few know, and now that you all do that. And I love that story, that modern folk tale. But the one I'm going to tell is going to go way back, because I'm sitting in my front yard today, and these kids going home from school with a bag, and they're just stopping and showing everybody. And they say, "We got a rattlesnake." And first thing I think, a rattlesnake, is it alive? And no, they say it's dead, but we found a snake. So they bring it over, and of course it's not a rattlesnake. And I'm like, no, it's not a rattlesnake. And I says, it's got to have rattles. But do you want to know how rattlesnakes got rattles? And of course, yeah, they want to know. Well, this is an older story. It goes way back to the times of creation, when the Lord was making animals. He made the snakes, he made the birds, he made the fish, he made the bees, everything. And when he got to the snake, well, the snake was a little bit disappointed. He was like, I got a bad rap here with the Lord making animals, because I don't have feet to run fast. I don't have wings to fly. I don't have fins where I can swim. He says, but the hardest thing for me is that he made me and put me on the ground, and I don't even mind that. But I can't see a thing. I am so blind that if I put my hands that I didn't have up in front of my face, I couldn't see them. I'm so blind that if I turned my cell phone flashlight on straight in my eyes, I couldn't see it. And that's not nice, because I get in all kinds of trouble. People are stepping on me all the time because I'm down on the ground and I can't do a thing about it. Well, the thing is, Mrs. Snake didn't have it any better. So he gets home one day and she is ranting and raving. And she says, I almost got run over today because nobody could see me. What is this? I took the kids to the playground and people are saying, oh, they're so cute. And they're picking them up and putting them on like necklaces because, they have nice, pretty colors. What is this? You need to go to the Lord, Mr. Snake, my husband, and tell the Lord to do something about this. Well, Snake says, well, what do you want me to do? That's what we got, luck of the draw. She said, Mr. Snake, if you got any type of backbone, you are going to go up there and talk to the Lord and tell him to do something about this situation. And he's like, what am I supposed to do? And she's like, oh, she got ugly. No, we women know what happens when we really got, oh Lord, she started it. My mama told me never to marry you. I should have listened to her, but no. I was in love. I got married to you and I have all these children, snakes here. And what's happening? Everybody's stepping on them. Oh, you ain't got no backbone, Mr. Snake. You need to do something, otherwise you get home tonight and there's not gonna be a snake here for you. Well, Snake figured he had to do something. Takes a threat like that. So it took him all day and he made it up to heaven. And there was the Lord. It was in the middle of the afternoon, but the Lord was leaning back. He was reading the Sacramento Bee, catching, those 2 pages you get, catching up with the news. He was smoking a little cigar. And he's like, hey, Mr. Snake, how goes it? And the snake says, Lord, things could be better. Things could be better. Now, I don't want to complain, but things could be a lot better. It's my wife. He decided to throw his wife under the bus. It's my wife. She complaining that people are stepping on the kids. She's complaining is that she's almost getting run over. She is complaining that I may not have a home to go back to tonight. What am I supposed to do? Can you do something to help me out? Can you do something to help out this family? Could you do something to help out this very humble servant of yours, Lord? And the Lord says, well, that's not no biggie. You could have come to me sooner. I could have sorted that out. So the Lord reached in his back pocket and he pulls out this little bottle. And he said, okay, here you go, Mr. Snake. You take this little bottle and it's some really good poison. You give a little bit to your wife, all your kids, and all your kinfolk, and that should take care of the problem. You're not gonna get stepped on. You're not gonna get picked up and put around your neck as a necklace. You're going to be cool. So Snake says, thank you, thank you, thank you. And the Lord said, you sure you don't want a little something? These are some good cigars all the way from Cuba. But Snake was in such a hurry. He says, I don't want to be rude. I got to go back and make the wife happy. So Snake goes back and he gives this to his wife, distributes to his family, and all is well. His wife is happy, he's happy, his family is happy, his kids are happy. However, all the other animals in the forest, they are not happy. They end up calling a meeting. They want representatives from all the animals except Snake. And they have this big old meeting. They call the meeting to order, Rabbit. And he says, the problem is Snake, since he got that poison from the Lord, he is just going around killing everybody. I mean, he has killed like 3 dozen people this week, and it's not even Wednesday yet. He's just happy. He's poison happy. His children are poison happy. His families, but we got to do something, because if we don't, there ain't gonna be nobody left in this forest. Nobody left to populate this forest. Well, Lion, the big king, he says, so what we gonna do about it? Rabbit on a rant, he says, just last week, he's poisoning everything. A leaf shakes, he's biting that. A spider goes by, he's grabbing the web. He even tried poisoning a cactus plant. No, he says that was kind of funny. It took a whole 2 days pulling out those little stickers from his jawbone. Yeah, King Lion says, but what are we going to do about this? But Rabbit said, the way I reckon, somebody got to go up there to the Lord and tell the Lord that something got to be done. Otherwise, none of his creations are going to be left here on earth. They're like, well, maybe we could just go tell Snake to quit biting people. And somebody said, who's going to get near a snake? So they decided not even to send a delegation, send the quickest, send the fastest talking person up to go see the Lord and see if they could get this matter resolved. So it turned out to be Rabbit again. And Rabbit, he's a fast talker. He's a trickster, but he can do a lot of good sometimes. So he gets there and he goes up, and there's again, he decided to go bright and early in the morning. So there was the Lord having his breakfast. He had a nice cup of coffee with some Evian water. Yep, he was doing that. And he was playing his video game. Yes, he was doing that too. And he wasn't smoking his cigar because his wife had told him it made his breath stink. And he's like, couldn't figure that out because he brushed 3 times a day. But anyway, there was the Lord at his breakfast table playing video games and drinking coffee and drinking sparkling water. And he said, hey, Mr. Rabbit, what brings you up here today? Mr. Rabbit said, how is it going? I said, Lord, how is it going? Oh, you're looking good. You're looking good. I hate to bother you this morning, but it's such a nice day. And we animals down there in the forest, we just want to enjoy the beautiful day and have a wonderful time like you are having up here this morning. And the Lord says, okay, now, Mr. Rabbit, I know you want something. You wouldn't have made that whole day trip to get up here just to give me compliments. Now, what is it that you want? Well, Rabbit says, not exactly what I want. It's what we all want. Since you gave Snake that poison, he is going around just killing everybody. Just counting right now, he's killed about 3 dozen of my kinfolks. He's killed, look, I'm not even going to count it out for you. He keeps on killing and killing and killing. And he even got my brother-in-law. I mean, I don't regret that one. He needed to go. But he's got to quit this. Oh, we don't know how to do it. And we figure you're the man. You could take care of it. And the Lord says, oh, no problem. That's easy. Why didn't you come before? This is what I keep telling people. Just coming up those stairs and come see me. Okay, why don't you go down there and tell Snake to get up here and let's have a talk. And Rabbit says, nobody can get close enough to Snake to tell him anything. And the Lord says, you got some big eyes there. Why don't you have Elephant stand a good ways away and call out to him and tell him to come up and see me? So Rabbit goes back down and they decide to do that. They send Elephant. You can hear Elephant halfway through the forest. So Elephant call out to Snake and says, Snake, the Lord wants to see you. So Snake, oh my God, he is in his element there. He's all spiffy and he goes up there to see the Lord. And the Lord says, what's this nonsense I hear that you're just killing everybody? And Snake says, but Lord, the thing is, because I can't see anything that comes close, I don't know if they're coming to attack me or they're coming to hug me. So I just snap and that's it. And the Lord said, no, that's not going to work. Here's what you do. He reaches in his back pocket again and he pulls out a little handful of rattles. Now, brings. Go figure. I don't know what he was doing with that in his pocket. Same as I'm not sure what he was doing with the poison in his pocket. He says, take these rings here and put them on your tail. So if somebody comes by, you hear somebody, because you can hear, even if you can't see, if you hear somebody coming, just give a rattle. And if it's somebody who's just coming to visit and pass the time of day with you, they will stop at a reasonable difference and you guys can have a conversation. But if somebody hears those rattles and they keep coming, well, it's you or them. You got free license. So take them, put some on your tail, and give some to the rest of your family. So Snake takes this and he goes back down and he puts those rattles on and he hands them out. So from that time on, if somebody approached Snake and he heard them, he rattled and they would stop. If they didn't and they kept coming, they got what they deserved. But the problem with that is that Snake and his family, they had killed so many people that nobody even wanted to come visit anymore. But he still kept those rattles and he would rattle it if he heard that sound. And he just wants everybody to know that, yes, I am Mr. Snake. I am Mr. Rattlesnake. I am the man. You do what you need to do. Back off or come forward. So the snake the kids had wasn't a rattlesnake, but that's how all the other rattlesnakes got their rattles.
Excellent. I always wanted to know how snakes got their rattles, the good old rattlesnakes. And I'm going to start smoking cigars, so I got to get ready for all that. Thank you so much, Angela. Really a well-told story as usual. Our next storyteller is someone who's new for me and maybe some of you. His name is Michael Katz. And Angela Lloyd recommended him as one of our storytellers. So he's our guest storyteller for tonight. And he is from the Santa Barbara region. And he's been telling stories for over 30 years. He hosted a radio show called Pajamas that was heard on NPR with the station KCBY. And he's one of the founders of a storytelling festival that I just really enjoyed. It was the Flying Leap Storytelling Festival in Solvang. And they had many great storytellers coming through there. I imagine that probably Angela was there at some point.
Definitely.
And so an interesting thing about Michael is that he was on the island of Hawaii, and he was walking out hiking, and he looked down and he realized that he was walking on lava because he could see that down below. And I'm sure that was a very startling and interesting experience. So please welcome Michael to our stage for the first time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ed. And what a pleasure to be hearing all of these tellers, many of whom I've not heard before. And thank you, Angela, for the invitation, and Ed for allowing me to be here. When you're the last storyteller for an event, it's you want to make sure that you bring the dessert. You don't want to give the main course again. And I've been listening to these stories, and I had a whole other story planned, but then something about both the Angelas, both of their stories, both with animals in them, and something about for me, the message of Angela Lloyd's story made me go, I think I'm going to tell this one. And I've been reflecting a lot on this idea of, like, who in our lives have we forgiven that we thought we could never forgive, and how amazing that ability is. And in the same line of never say never, I used to always say I'd never tell a story with props, until this story found me. It's a Jataka story. These are ancient tales from India, animal stories, and they're different incarnations of the Buddha. And this one's called The Magic of Patience. It goes like this. Long ago, in a jungle of India, In this one jungle of India, there lived a bull, and this bull's name was Buddha Bull. And though Buddha Bull looked unhappy and sad and mean from the outside, inside, he was sweet and kind and very happy. Now, in that same jungle, there lived a monkey, a mischievous monkey, and this monkey's name was Monkey. Monkey liked to pick on the other animals, and the one animal he liked to pick on the most was the bull, Buddha Bull. He'd jump in front of Buddha Bull's face and he'd say, "Look at your frown, look at your frown, the circus could use you as a clown." He'd jump on his back. Give me a ride, or my stick will beat your hide." He'd pull him by the tail. "Your tail is my rope, your tail is my rope. Hoo-hoo, look at me, I got a dope on a rope. Hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo, hoo." Now, in that same jungle, there lived a fairy, a jungle fairy, and she was watching everything that was going on. And she said, "Buddha Bull, why do you put up with Monkey? He's so annoying. You're bigger than him. Stick your horn in him. Do away with him. No one will miss Monkey." Oh, jungle fairy, showing anger at someone else never leaves anyone happy. You know, when a monkey does those things to me, it hurts. Now, I could stick my horn in him, but he'd be angry with me, and I'd feel terrible later on. So this is what I do instead. I take a deep breath, and I think, poor monkey. Somebody must have done something bad to him. That's why he's being mean to me. Poor monkey. He must be lonely because he doesn't know how to make any friends. Poor monkey. He's funny. But he's funny in the wrong way. Poor monkey. The jungle fairy said, "Buddha Bull, I know so much magic, but you've taught me the magic of being patient. I would like to be more patient. Will you teach me?" "Certainly. Now, in order to be patient, you need to practice, but you don't want to practice with someone who's nice. That's too easy. What you want to do is practice with someone who's difficult. What you need is a good monkey. Would you like to borrow my monkey?" "No, thank you, Buddha Bull. I've got enough monkeys in my life already. But thank you for teaching me about the magic of being patient. I shall practice. Goodbye, Buddha Bull." Well, who do you think was listening from behind the bushes? Of course, Monkey. And the monkey came out and said, "Buddha Bull, I didn't think anybody understood you. I could really use a friend. Would you be my friend?" "Certainly." And from that time forward, Buddha Bull and Monkey were the best of friends.
Oh boy, what a real treat that was. I've never seen anything like that. The quick change of all those props. So enticing. And oh wow. I'm so glad I've had the opportunity to see you. You're so expressive and good energy. Oh, thank you. And that story is very entertaining. Thank you. And thank you, Angela, for recommending that he
Yes.
join us.
Let's do it again.
Yes. So let's, if all the well, everyone, including the audience and the storytellers, just unmute yourself. I'm going to make a couple announcements, and then anyone who's got an announcement of an event or something they want to share, or you want to say something to the storytellers, the listeners out there, please feel free to do that. So go ahead,
Yeah.
everyone, just unmute away.
I
And
do. This is Megs. I think we should have Michael at the upcoming storytelling festival, Bay Area Storytelling Festival.
ooh,
Next year, we're going to have it in Santa Rosa at Sonoma Academy.
yeah, we'll
Yeah.
definitely keep in touch with you. And if you're not a member of SAC, well, you're going to be now. So if you're not,
Oh,
you're going to soon become a member.
well, he has been
Okay.
in the past. I know that.
So one of the things that we do here is, as you saw with all these storytellers, anyone can be nominated to be a storyteller. So if you're part of a story swap group, any of the story swap groups, or if you're not, start getting involved with your local swap group. And you can be nominated to be a teller. We pay all our tellers $50 for their presentation, which, you know, we probably should pay them more like 500, but we want to give that kind of an honorarium to people and recognize their talent. And so we do that for all our events. We have a program with the Storytelling Association of California called the Jenny Fund, where we get tellers and go into the public schools or schools, any kind of a school, elementary, preschool, after school childcare. We've been focusing on underserved communities. It's run by one of our board members, Rupa Mohan, and we get a couple, 3 storytellers that go. We've been doing it on Zoom, but we will go back to in person when that's safe enough for all of us. And we pay all our tellers to do that. And also another thing that we encourage is people to be MCs. So many of our board members are MCs. Marilyn's been an MC. Liz, I see who's on here, is an MC from the Contra Costa Tail Spinners, and probably a few others that I don't see right now. But we pay our MCs too, or we also, a lot of us, you know, especially on the board, we donate our $50 to the Jenny Fund, and that just expands for all the good work that's done. There's lots of great things going on. The genres coming up so it's always the 3rd Wednesday from 7 to 8:30. Next month in October are spooky, scary stories. And so think about that. And if you are part of a story swap group or get involved with one, get the word out there and tell your leaders that you would like to be nominated to share a story. We have a story, the genre storytelling every month, except for November, because that's when all celebrations happen all over the place. And one of the things that we do is we did some pairings with Northern California and Southern California story swap groups. So and we usually have about 8 tellers, 4 from each group, and they each have an MC. And there's lots of different ways that it can be done. But I know with my local group, the Sacramento Storytellers Guild, we are pairing with Angela's group, the Inland Valley Storytellers, and we will be putting on an event, a joint celebration. And then other groups, I know, like Maryland's group down there, the Storytellers of San Diego, they'll be putting on their own event. And another thing about being a member of SAC, you can use our Zoom account, which is, you know, what we're doing here. Shags is our master of getting that information out. He's also our treasurer for the board. So we have those things going on. You know, in December, our sacred stories, then we go to tall tales and romantic stories of love. We just go all the way down, you know, and this is the 3rd year, and we kicked it off in August with personal stories. So we'll be continuing on, and all these genres are just, for me, is just very exciting. And this event is recorded. So we have our a YouTube channel or website. Shag's can tell you a little bit more about that and how to access that, but you can hear this performance tonight. And if you want to hear it again, and the storytellers can hear themselves if you want to critique yourself, and definitely share it with other people so they can get interested in what's going on. And let's see. And with my local group in Sacramento, we are planning a festival for May 20th in 2023. It's going to be the first, we call it the Sacramento Valley Storytelling Festival. And it's going to be a kind of a 1 to 9 o'clock event with workshops, open mics, regional tellers, and some more of our national, international tellers. And the 3 tellers that we're going to have doing workshops and putting on an evening performance are Willie Claflin, Claire Hennessy, and Corey Rosen. So that's quite a lineup of excellent storytellers, and you'll get information about that through our organization. So now I'd like to open it up to anybody who would like to share something they've got going on. I think let's start with our storytellers. If there's something you wanted to share about the work you're doing, and then any audience members can pop in and share something. Anyone in our group?
Sure. Put the San Diego Storytelling Festival on your calendar. It's next March. It is on the 18th, and it is in Coronado. So you'll be wanting to come to that, because who doesn't want to come to Coronado and hear stories?
I'll second that, because it was at
Put it in
the
the
public
chat.
library in Coronado.
Put it
It's
in the
just
chat.
beautiful there.
Oh yeah, put it in the chat too. That's good.
The Coronado Library is beautiful. I just want to shout out to the Flying Leap Festival, which was a while ago, but it was such a sweet, it was in Solvang, and Michael was very much one of the, I was going to say founding members of that event. But it had an intimacy that I always really loved. And a little known fact from that was one time I went into a little restaurant there. They had a counter, and there was a piece of pie on a plate that no one had touched, and there was nobody sitting with that piece of pie. And I said to the waitress behind the counter, I said, "What is going on with this piece of pie?" And she said, "Well, the person who ordered it also had another dessert, and they ate the other dessert and they left." And I said, "May I please have a clean fork?" And she said, "Yes." And she gave me a clean fork. I took one bite, and then I said, "Please put another clean fork on a new napkin by this piece of pie, and I'll be back tomorrow to find out how many people ate this pie."
The good or was it bad?
I know Liz has an event coming up.
Well, our story swap is tomorrow, and we're on Zoom, and I can put that in, and Ramya is going to be one of our storytellers, so excited for that. I think that's the person who's here right now. But also on October 5th, SAC is offering another workshop. I don't think it got mentioned yet today, on how to run a hybrid event. And I kind of approached Ed and Andrew, who helps because the Sacramento Storytelling Guild has been doing hybrid, and thinking that others of us would like to learn from them. So, I thought initially as a swap leader that swap leaders would be interested, but I think lots of us would be interested, and it's open to all SAC members, and I'll put the basics in the chat, and would love to have anybody come. So
And
that's,
one thing about the Storytelling Association of California, a year's dues is $35 or 30. SAG, SHAG.
It's 30 without, 30 with electronic newsletter, 35 with snail mail.
And you can get a 2-year membership for $50. So it's a great, for all the things that we have to offer. This story, we have this newsletter that's just amazing. That's our board president, Sarah Armstrong, and Tina and a few others put together. It's just jam-packed with great information. Anyone else have something they would like to share? Hop on and just go ahead. Go ahead, Michael.
Sure. Well, just wanted to say, because I've been visiting Ojai. I just visited it the other day, and they're still doing their storytelling festival. Brian's no longer running it after a zillion years, and it was so thrilled to hear that someone was taking it over. And it's just, I just think it's one of the most beautiful towns and beautiful venues. And Brian's always had impeccable taste. I don't know a lot of the tellers that are coming, but I know Kara, who's running it, is really trying hard, and that's and really, I mean, really putting in a lot. Not trying like, like she really seems like she's jumped in running, and it's going to be the weekend of October 21st, and
28th.
Oh, you're right.
Halloween weekend.
I'm doing a gig for the festival on the 21st. You're right. You don't need to come to that. It's the Rotary Club, The 28th. Yeah.
oh,
And that, I'd like to add to that. I think the festival has been going on 30 years, something like that. 25, I don't know exactly, but I went to every one of them. I used to live in that area. Ojai's a beautiful town by Santa Barbara, if you don't know it. And they get just top lines of storytellers. They've got a beautiful bowl, and called the Libby Bowl, kind of like a little Hollywood bowl, and just a wonderful environment and a great place to be. So, and Thursday night they have a gathering, and it's all day Friday, all day Saturday, and half a day on Sunday. And one of the nice things they do with the storytellers that they hire, especially if any of you are really trying to expand your repertoire and be at a festival like that, is they hire a lot of the tellers to come into the school system a few days ahead and work with school children. I don't know what they pay them, but it's part of, they're there for the weekend, they get paid for that, and they get paid for coming into schools. And then there are performances by children on Friday during the day. To me, it's a very special festival.
Angela just posted the link, so yeah.
Oh, nice. And the other one, I'm gonna get to go to this. I haven't been since 2000. Is the put on by the International Storytelling Center, is that national festival in Jonesboro, Tennessee, which is I think October 6th through the 9th. And I'm going to get to fly out there for that. I'm really excited about that one.
and Brandon Spars is at the Exchange Place. We got
All
it.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so all sent
Ooh.
Brandon. So excited for, I don't know if he's still on. It looks like he's
Yeah.
not anymore. Are you here?
Oh,
Or-
no.
No, he's not here right now.
Here's a little known fact about the Exchange Place. When those of us that have emceed at the festival, emceeing the Exchange Place is one that the MCs fight over. And I just want you to know I won it a few times.
Nice. Very nice. Anyone else? I know, Alicia, you're doing all kinds of things. You want to tell us anything that you've got going on?
Yeah, I've been over at the San Geronimo Community Center. I've got my corn husk dolls are up at the center. A whole variety of dolls now. I've got dancers and the rhubarb man and all sorts of things. And today was exhibit day, where 158 students came through the exhibit and talked about my work. And tomorrow I start workshops with those same 158 students, teaching them how to make just simple corn husk dolls. And then this Saturday is the Peace Festival, so I'm the featured teller for that. And
where is
boy,
that?
then
Tell us where that
it-
is again.
it is the San Geronimo Valley Community Center.
And where is
63
that?
It's this Saturday. It's this Saturday at 5 p.m.
But where is
it's
San
the-
Geronimo? I just don't know.
Oh, San Geronimo Valley is do you know San Rafael?
Sure.
Okay, so San Rafael and then just head west.
Okay.
And it's about 10 minutes away from Samuel P. Taylor Park. It's a beautiful, beautiful valley. And there's a wonderful community center there. So I'm the artist in residence, which is my first time in being having that kind of opportunity. So I'm pretty excited about that. So my work will be up until September the 30th. And then in October, I go to the Sonoma County Community Center, where I'm doing the full program, where I do a performance with my large corn husk dolls of the Three Sisters. We talk about companion planning, and then the students are going to go into 3 rotations. One with me about companion plants and making dolls. The other one has to do with movement. And the third one is creating a menu for all these edible plants that they just learned about. And the last workshop, they come, they tell their little story about their companion plants, and then we eat the food of the companion plants. Yeah. So that's what I'm up to. Oh, and then BZ Smith and I are doing the celebration for the Oregon Guild, and that's in November.
In Oregon?
Yeah, I think it's out of Oregon.
Okay, I know she's a member of the Sierra group.
Yes.
Yeah, very nice. That's exciting.
Yeah. So things are happening. I'm very grateful to be working.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it's been 2 years since I've been working with kids, and today was the first day, and it was, interesting having to go with how you behave with the kindergartners and first graders. And I went, how do you get their attention? Oh yeah, bump, bada bump, bump. They all knew that one. And then the next level, and the last group were the 7th and 8th graders, and apparently it works for them too.
Nice. Yeah, it is such a joy. I'm a retired early childhood educator, and I just love working with all those different age groups and storytelling and music. And it's just so interesting, and all the different kinds of things you can do that are more specific to their developmental stage. Anyone else want to share anything?
I only have one thing. I've not been to Jonesboro, but I understand that there is a Zoom component this year that you'll be able to buy a weekend pass for the Zoom recordings that will be out later in October.
Oh wow.
So I'm going to sign up for that, because I can't get for Jonesboro.
Okay,
this year.
interesting. Yeah.
Good to know. Thank you.
And Marilyn, are you still there, Marilyn? Okay. Anything with the National Storytelling Network that's you'd like to share?
Well, you can always check on their website. NSN is pressing ahead and has some new leadership, and they're doing some interesting things. I think that a lot of the things that are coming up are things that are with the special interest groups, with the SIGs. So if you take a look at the SIGs, because they're doing some really nice workshops.
Yeah, that's like she said, the special interest group. They're called SIGs.
I was on their website today, and I noticed that they're making it possible for members to attend the board meeting. So there's a board meeting this Saturday.
Oh, nice.
So if you are interested in attending the board meeting, you can just go on the website and register.
What time is it?
I think it's from 9 to 11 Pacific time
Okay.
for us. So, but
Good.
don't quote me on that. You just go to it's right there on the site.
Thank you.
And yeah, our board member, Brandon Spars, has taken over Marilyn's duty as the what's it called?
The regional
Pacific
director.
Region Director.
Okay,
Yeah.
Civic Region Director. Yes.
And he's doing a great job.
Okay. Is there anyone else want to share anything before we sign off? Okay. Well,
Is there-
gosh, thank you so much for all these wonderful stories. I've learned a lot. I've been entertained and educated, and was really, really honored to be able to listen to all these great stories. So and I hope to hear you again at different events. I know Genevieve's told with us and other people. So looking forward to the future.
Thank you,
Okay.
Ed. Save the
Thank
tab,
you.
everybody,
Thank
for
you.
all
Thank
this
you, everyone.
information.
I'll see
Yeah.
you at 100 Stories.